Instead of going over the fear of starting your comic as covered in the previous video, I'm going to go over the wonderful inevitability of improvement in both your writing and art if you were to start your comic today. If you are new here, I am a corporate 9-to-5 worker with too much free time and draw webcomics, webtoons, and illustrations during my off hours. There is a lot of joy that comes from creating your own stories, but I understand if there are many challenges along with it, like self-doubt, time management, or struggling to be consistent. I'm approaching all of this advice as someone who draws as self-fulfillment after my job, so if you just want to draw for fun or as a very serious hobby, this video is for you. If you're hoping to become a business tycoon off of webcomics, I hope you can still walk away from this video with something. This intro is getting quite long, so let's just dive into the tips. Tip 1. Your art will always improve. Webcomics are so wonderful because your art will always improve along with it, guaranteed. No matter where you are in your art journey, if you start your comic at this very moment, you are bound to see changes or even dislike the art from your earlier chapters. I think the beautiful thing about artists having a webcomic series is seeing their art improvement over time within the course of one story. It's like each chapter serves as an art and story time capsule and shows how much you've grown since starting your series. Quote unquote, my art style isn't good enough is the most common reason I hear from creators when they tell me they have an idea for a series but hadn't started it yet. Like mentioned previously, nothing will help you improve faster than forcing yourself to look up a specific reference for that one panel, and by the end of it you will have walked away learning how to draw something new and you have a webcomic chapter. What I'm trying to say is that when you have a webcomic or a project in the work, from your first panel to the latest, your art will always have some small tweaks along the way even if you don't see it, which in turn will catapult your art improvement. Here are some mainstream examples. If you take the first panel of One Piece and compare it with some of the later chapters, you can see improvement from the art, even though One Piece has always been iconic, bestseller. Oda is amazing, he's known as Gouache for a reason. And of course it's a very long running series and he's clearly a professional and at the top of his craft, but even he is not safe from the improvement fairy. A more recent example is from Gouache, which I have been enjoying the ride when I started the series a couple months ago. The art improvement is different from the earlier chapter to the more recent one, even though there's less than 70 chapters out at the time of recording this video. Some other examples from series that I love, here is the first and final panel of Bleach, Full Metal Alchemist, The Black Butler, Bakuman, Yakuza Fiance, some older titles like Ah My Goddess, Shakugan Oshana, Fruit Basket. I can go on and on about every single manga I have read, but you get the point. Improvement is just inevitable. The next tip is to not pigeonhole yourself into a specific art style. I understand taking bits and pieces of influences from all of the artists that you love and admire, but oftentimes I see new comic artists trying to copy a pre-existing or iconic art style one per one to the original. And while that's like good if you're trying to study very intensely, but I think in the long run it will probably be at your detriment, because for one who wants to be known as the discount version of Kohei Horikoshi who drew My Hero Academia, or Masashi Kishimoto who drew Naruto. As you continue to draw your comic and learn more about yourself as an artist, you will find natural tendencies and parts of drawing that you enjoy drawing the most. For the most common example is flowing hair or the eyes or super detailed clothing. So the key point I'm trying to say is draw the style you yourself are most comfortable drawing in. Really, how many more Korean romance manhwa styles do we need? I could barely tell the difference between most of these series. This is more of a footnote, but this tip has helped me big time in the past. One of the pro tips I've learned for comics in particular is to draw in a style that you can accomplish 70% of the time. so that you are not burning yourself out drawing 100% of your artistic capacity for 40 panels on a weekly basis. If you try to simplify the style or make your process easier to replicate, you're not breaking your back working 24/7 on your series, and you can still produce panels to panels even when you're not feeling at your best, or most productive, or most energized. Anyways, art will always take time, and just imagine all of those art styles out there that you admire. Just imagine how much time and practice it took for them to get to that point. Believe me, we all wish we were evicted from our mother's womb with the skills of Kim Jong-gi or Leonardo da Vinci already on pre-order, but that is just not possible. We all have to grind and grind and grind and grind to get to the point where our audience will feel that our art seems effortless to make and it comes naturally to us. To build off on a previous point, and that is to keep your webcomic art style simple. Most comics that are created independently or are done by a single person are obviously done by one person, but series such as Unholy Blood, Lookism, Your Throne, Solo Leveling, crap, what was the title? Wait, it's just Solo Leveling. Tower of God. I can name them all, but you can see what they all have in common is that they have a main artist and a team of helpers behind them, and that they are all done in a studio in Korea, and that is just how the Korean webcomic industry is designed. I'm obviously not from Korea, it's just me. I'm doing the writing, promoting, the drawing, the crying. For us singleton, it is important to keep the art style simple enough so that it is sustainable to create X amount of panels each episode. To put it in perspective, let's say you're drawing a weekly series. A production goes like this. Monday you write the script, maybe start on the thumbnail. Tuesday you finish and finalize the thumbnail, then you go on the drawing program to begin putting in the dialogue and initial sketch line, then maybe start on the line art if you're fast enough. Then Wednesday to Friday you are locked in, inking all 75 of your planned panels, making the adjustment, cleaning up the lines while you're at it, and then you start adding flat colors, and by Saturday you're almost at the end and finalize everything and then add the final effects, and then Sunday look over, then upload, and you finally sleep, and then on Monday you have to do it all over again. So imagine doing that by yourself and you have a super detailed rendering style without any assistance. That is just a recipe for burning out before even making your first mark on the next episode. Obviously when you start out you're still finding your workflow, so most don't even start with a team off the bat. Personally, I do eventually want to hire help, but I am still trying to find out how I want to delegate each part of the process that most aligns with my workflow. If you have been around the Webtoon world long enough or have read plenty of webcomics, we all see artists are posting at breakneck frequencies, which on average is about 40 to 60 fully rendered and colored panels, which is great, but I think that's just quite insane for an artist. I can go on and on about the horde of burnout webcomic artists, but I can save that rant for another video. The point is, make sure not only your webcomic process itself is sustainable to upload on a consistent basis, but also the art style. This point is less of a tip, but more of a very common feeling, which is you will just not always be happy with your art, and that is okay. As much as I wish that comic production is very similar to hiking in the beautiful wilderness and smelling the roses, but most of the time we will just be shrouded in self-doubt and unsatisfaction with some of our work. We will not always be happy with 100% of the things we produce, that's just a fact. But the core of the problem is, yes, self-loathing will always only serve to self-sabotage yourself. But the goal is not to say bibbidi bobbidi boo, suddenly I'm so in love with my art. You don't need to be on that extreme end of the spectrum, but to try and improve your relationship with your art by making it less of, wow, I'm so in love with my art, to, okay, I really want to improve, so let's just draw without expectation. Art, or anything in life for that matter, is not something you have to be the absolute best or perfect at. You don't have to put that pressure on yourself, because the reality is there will always be someone better or someone that can pick up things faster. And that is okay. And it's okay to be envious or jealous of other people's art successes, but their victories are not your failure. You get to find it in yourself to redirect that energy to, okay, What do I personally want to improve on? What do I want to learn? How can I make it so that I'm not so results driven and more self-development driven? At the end of the day, you will not always be happy with drawing 100% of the time, and there will be feast and famine of the nice feel-good vibe after working, but most of the time, drawing can be a grind, especially if you're working on a comic series with chapters after chapters with so many panels, but it's important to not let that self-loathing paralyze or be so overwhelming to the point where you just stop. I guess what I'm trying to say is to do your best to tackle these feelings in the way that makes the most sense to you. A caveat from this point is letting go of perfectionism. The sad part about starting out with such a small audience and it feels like nobody cares, but also it's great part about not having so many eyes on your work is that nobody cares. You can always go back and edit older chapters when you feel there is still room for improvement. This is how I was able to get away with redrawing my older chapters without having much people complain. Case in point, you can see I have gone in, edited, redrew, rewrote all of my earliest chapters, and well, this video now shows proof of the older versions, but most of my general readers don't even know the older versions exist. But definitely don't fall into the trap of doing this over and over again. I just feel the small fry stage is the best time to learn mistakes and gain experience. So by the time a massive crowd gathers around and watches your every move with bated breath, you already know what to do. Who would have thought that fast growth builds ego and small growth builds character does not just apply to YouTubers? And my final point is to create comics for yourself. I've said this many times before in previous videos, and not just because I swear by it. If you don't enjoy creating for fun, you will not enjoy it as a career. You know when you're forced to work on your story because now you have a publisher to please? It's no secret that creating webcomics is a very long marathon and each episode takes a lot of time and effort to produce. So find ways to just make it fun for you. Gamify each step of the process, decorate your planner with key stickers, draw your characters in a meme format, anything to just keep it fun and keep the spark alive. When you draw your webcomic with the intention to make it a self-fulfillment project, you will lean into a process that not only works best for you but will come to you naturally. It's perfectly fine to scour the internet and read up other creators' workflows and their wisdom, but it is important to line up the advice given to what just comes naturally to you. And this by saying if you really want to get your stories out there, it is important to prioritize falling in love with the process of creating a comic. And if you pour your love and excitement to your work, I can guarantee it will not go unnoticed by your audience. If you have any questions or want me to cover any additional topics regarding webcomic and webtoon creation, feel free to leave a comment down below. And if you have your own series, feel free to share them as well. If you are still here and watched till the very end, thank you so much for watching the video. I hope to see you in the next one and wishing you all an absolutely lovely rest of your day. Bye!